My name is Elizabeth Brownlow, and today I will be reviewing Richard A. Bailey's Race and Redemption in Puritan New England. Kind of an overview of the book. Bailey's purpose in this book was to investigate ways colonial New Englanders used, constructed, and reconstructed their specific variants of Puritanism as lenses to interpret the rapid transformations of their social and cultural landscapes. He argues that race was created by all New Englanders due to spiritual, physical, and social freedoms offered to Native Americans and Africans, while whites wrestled with assimilating them into their lives. He states that at first there was a clear, consistent colonial organization that was meant to separate them from those who differed physically and culturally from them, but that this could not last because of rapid transformations in social and cultural landscapes. He divides it into 5 different chapters. In the first chapter, laying the foundations for a city upon a hill, faith, works, covenant, and colonialism, he takes a look at the uses of the Puritan theological system to handle inconsistencies, and how they're used to make sense of social realities, and how they're filled with contradictory relationships. In the second chapter, Image unmakes the man, the consequences of thinking about the colors and capabilities of others. He looks at the ways in which whites imagine blacks and Native Americans and the consequences of those imaginations, which were the othering, othering them as essentially intellectually, culturally, and spiritually inferior, and how this transferred into New England laws. In the third chapter, I Come into the Light, Confessions of Faith, Sermons, and Ventriloquism. He coins the term cultural ventriloquism, which is processes by which whites placed words into the mouths of Native Americans and Africans, which he states were for Puritan clergy to control, or their attempt to control, to reinforce contradictions in relationships and to form race identities as a consequence of these relationships. In this, he focuses less on written words such as Phyllis Wheatley, and he chooses to focus more on the seemingly silent masses. In the fourth chapter, We Are Not to Make Asses of Our Servants, Exercising Authority Over New Englanders of Color. He examines the verbal claims, emotional claims, and physical claims to authority and ownership of whites over the Native Americans and the Africans. In the fifth and last chapter, The Art of Coining Christians, Redeeming Self and Others in Puritan New England, he examines ways in which the clergy and laity attempted to resolve uneasiness over contradictory relationships. He states that this is an application of redemption that was used to deliver themselves by delivering deliverance to others, and he states that the equality in this deliverance was not social. He chose to focus his research on the northern colonies as opposed to the typically reviewed southern colonies when it comes to examining race in early America, and he attempts to locate the development of race as a category of difference in the late 17th, early 18th century, as opposed to typical arguments that this was located in the late 18th century after the American Revolution. He puts forward the notion that race is not solely based on social and physical freedoms of African and Native Americans that were being gained, but on the spiritual freedoms that were being gained as well, which is why he places them in late 17th, early 18th century. He argues that scientific racism could be seen as logically flowing from race thinking in earlier American colonies, and his primary focus is on the citizens of the city on a hill, which included Puritans, Indigenous Americans, and Africans. This actually includes a really wide body of ethnographical, historical, and theological secondary source support, and a really wide array of primary sources. His bibliography for primary sources was 13 pages long. You could easily use this as a primary source for bibliographical research. You could also use it for an exploration of Puritan views on race and theological influences or justifications on these views of race. I personally, for my paper, used it to examine Puritan ideas about Native American depravity and baseness, and to support my argument that darkness was associated with spirituality or the lack thereof. I also used it to support my argument that these images were used to support white views of themselves, and I used it to describe and provide primary resources that indicated ethnic groupings in Puritan writings. Here's my works cited, and thank you very much.